Hello, it's Davy Mooney, coming to you from the University of North Texas, where I run the jazz guitar program. I'm a Benedetto artist, Sunnyside Records artist. Got the Sunnyside collection here. The newest is The Word, and I'm going to be in Japan promoting this record in September. Very excited about that. I got a couple Mel Bay books, Personalizing Jazz Vocabulary and Into the Labyrinth, and the new one. I swear to God, y'all, we got the cover, we've got the, went through everything, and I said, yes, yes, yes. It's called How to Achieve Great Jazz Phrasing, A Practical Method. Very practical title as well. So I feel like it's going to be out in the fall. And let's see what else. It is early July here. Is it July 3rd, 2025. Yeah, the weather's nice. We're just chilling, getting ready for the combo camp. The UNC Jazz Combo Summer Camp is coming up in a couple weeks, and then I'm going to go to Brazil for a while, and then that's gonna be it for the summer. But that's not what I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk about the Isham Jones song, There Is No Greater Love. One of those standards, y'all. This may be one of the first songs that I learned when I really started getting into learning tunes. This is just one that you're going to play on a million gigs. Comes up again and again and again. It's been recorded by all the cats, and I did a version at on my solo gig that I do once a month in Sundance Square in Fort Worth. That was kind of fun, so I thought I'd talk about it. It's not that strange or difficult, but it's a cool tune. So it's from 1936, I believe. A guy named Isham Jones, who also wrote "It Had to Be You," some other big hits. And I guess it was recorded with the early version of the Woody Herman band. And I was listening to that original recording. He sings it in C, and they modulate to F, I think. But one thing that's kind of interesting with a lot of these versions is, so if you have the second chord, the way I learned it was as a dominant. But a lot of these versions, it's a, what do you call it? A major chord, or like a sixth chord. There's a Joe Powell, I'll tell you the chords, the sort of standard chords in B flat, then maybe some variations. So like B flat major, E flat. A lot of these days I think most people play like E flat 9, E flat dominant, A flat 7, A flat 7 sharp 11, or D7, G7, C7, F7. Second A, it's an AABA tune, 32 bars. Pretty much the same thing, although the very end, instead of hanging on C7, it's just does a bar of C7, then like a 2-5 to B flat. That's what most people play. Then the bridge, you have like a 2-5 to the 6th chord, so like a 2-5 G minor. And the melody's like. You do that 3 times. A minor, 7 flat 5, D7, G minor, or just D7 to G minor. And C7 again to F7. That's the song. Last Day is the same as like the second A. And those changes, that's pretty much how Miles, if you go to the 1964 concert, that's pretty much what they play straight up, including like the second chord as a dominant, then like an A flat 7, because a lot of earlier versions, the third chord would be like a D7 instead of A flat 7, so like the tritone sub. But I think the Miles 64 changes are what most people play. An early guitar version I heard of this was a Mike Stern record, Standards. That's a great record from the 90s. I believe Gil Goldstein, shout out to Gil Goldstein, produced that record. I studied with him at NYU, and that's a great album. He plays a lot of like standards on that record. That's why it's called Standards. One thing that's interesting about the Isham Jones, I noticed on the so like I said, they have the second chord is more like a major chord. He's in the key of C, but just to do it in B flat, so they're the same. It's more of like a major or a 6 chord. Then D7 for like, the G7 only comes in like at the last second, so he's like, there is no greater love in all the world is true. No greater love, no heart so true. And then what's interesting is the bridge, so they go, you're the sweetest thing, does the normal thing, 3 times to G minor, 2/5 to G minor, and to think that you are. Then what's interesting is then they go like, alone. So after the G minor, the 3rd time, they go up a half step to like an A flat 7 sharp 11 kind of sound, then F7, which is very unusual. I mean, it's the original recording, so maybe that was the original chord. So interesting how no one else ever did that. And to think that you are mine alone. And then the same thing at the end. Another version or variation that's pretty interesting is the original recording that Miles did of this was from the Miles Davis New Quintet, like in the mid-50s, I think, when he was still on Prestige. So I believe that's, you know, Train and Paul Chambers and Philly Joe and Red Garland, I think. I looked it up a little while ago. I look up so many things for these videos, sometimes I get confused. But I think it's that, you know, that band that is on all the Workin', Relaxin', Cookin', Steamin', Roundabout Midnight, etc. But the original version, so that he recorded on that record, like 1955, 1956, he goes, da 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 da. I really like it. So it's like B flat major, E7, E flat minor. Why no one ever played that again? That's a really cool little change. There is no greater love in what I feel for you. No greater love. And then the regular changes. Also, like Joe Pass on Joy Spring live record, 1964. That was, you know, one of the things that I wrote my dissertation on. Joe Pass. That was one of the albums I transcribed and talked about. A huge influence on me. And I believe they do it in E flat. Oops. Tell you, these videos are live, y'all. So he, let's see, I think he's in E flat. But if I remember, I'm kind of doing this just off the top of my head since I spent so much time with that recording. But they do a little intro, just guitar and piano. And again, I think it's... B flat major, E7 sharp 9, E flat major 7, A flat 7, G7. So that's kind of a nice, I do that a lot when I'm playing it solo. I believe in the solo version from Sundance Square. I do that little variation. Anyway, so there's a lot of different ways you can do it, but I think the standard thing would be, you know, B flat 7, E flat 7, B flat 7, a measure E flat 7, A flat 7, G7, and it's kind of fun to play on, you know, because you have this cycle of dominance, right? And it's a good for like jazz education purposes to get some people to start playing some melodic minor harmony, if I'm allowed to say that. But you know, you have like you could go B flat major to E flat 7 Lydian dominant, so like B flat major to B flat melodic minor, then like E flat melodic minor, G7. You could go A flat melodic minor if you want. It's funny, I was looking at somebody posted online a sheet of paper from a lesson with Emily Remler. And it was interesting because it reminded me of when I first learned this melodic minor harmony with Hank Mackey in New Orleans. He referred to it as the jazz minor scale. You know, melodic minor, the ascending melodic minor, whereas in classical music, of course, melodic minor, you change to natural minor when you descend. But I thought that was funny. That term, I don't know where that came from. I guess maybe from Berkeley, from someone at Berkeley. But now we talk melodic minor, and we talk, E flat 7, B flat melodic minor on an E flat 7 chord. We call Lydian dominant. On a dominant chord that with a sharp 11. You can play it on the C dominant too. You could play G melodic minor on that, so like C Lydian dominant. And then on the F7, you can play F sharp melodic minor. Again, if you want to really jazz school it out, I feel like I have to apologize these days for some reason when I start talking about melodic minor harmony. But hey, man, it's a cool sound. You don't have to play every note of a 7-note scale, but it helps you access some really interesting sounds, so. And then on the bridge, you're just in G minor. You could play like a lot of minor 2/5 licks, 3 in a row, or you could maybe think of a more like a larger tonality, like a G minor tonality. Maybe you could think G harmonic minor. And then on the C7, you could go G melodic minor, and then do the 2/5 back to B flat. And of course, with the ongoing sort of back and forth between chord scales and jazz vocabulary, you can of course like come up with some licks and lines that you work out to, you could get from the Mike Stern record or from the Joe Pass record or whoever, Sonny Rollins, any of these people. But I think it's helpful to at least be aware of the melodic minor applications. I guess you could just make them all Mixolydian is also the dominant chords. Nothing wrong with that. And then of course just arpeggiate. It's hard for me to just not kind of play like myself. I've played this song so many times, and my thing is a combination of all of that, little arpeggio fragments, little fragments of vocabulary that I picked up along the way, and knowing like I've said many times and in my book, those scales, chord scales, were how I learned the neck. So I knew to even know where the notes were, and then I would add vocabulary to that. But I was able to noodle around in the right key areas using the chord scales, which I think is important. So anyway, I'll play a few with the track on this song, and also check out my solo guitar version that I did the other day in the at Sundance Square, and all these great recordings of this tune going back to 1936. All right, enjoy.